What's up, guys? I'm back out here in the truck house after making some progress on my little Honda 70 four-wheeler for my kids, as well as showing y'all my square body Suburban, my plans for it, and how it relates to that Dante's Peak movie from '97. I didn't even realize it. That thing's right behind this wall. There it is, four-door Blazer, just like that. In my lean-to that's enclosed, kind of just in a storage spot there until I get around to it. So I'm hoping to get this conglomeration done here, the crew cab with the white body and then the engine out of the other truck, and the four-wheel drive stuff off the other frame done, so I can tow that orange thing to some off-road parks and do some serious wheeling with it. I also have plans to drive that thing out the Outer Banks some, and right now I'm hoping to make a little progress on this four-wheel drive swap, as well as taking some stuff off the frame from that four-wheel drive donor. So I need to get this front end bolted in now that I have the bracket all installed there and lined up nicely, as well as the rear brackets for the shackles. And then I realized I need to take the transfer case bracket that is like a cross member off of the Highboy frame to hold the transfer case. So I've got the MP205 laying right here. There's another all-wheel drive basically transfer case in the frame right now that I'm not going to use, and then I need to get the rear axle out that matches this front axle. They should both be 4:10 ratios based off of what the Highboys came with, and then also me checking it. So with that, I'm going to get started. I'm going to try to take some stuff off the frame out there in the grass, but I'm dealing with some wasps right now. I just tried to spray them and burn them up with some WD-40 and a lighter. Got a nice flame, but ended up missing a bunch of them, and now they're all mad. So I'm going to try to take care of that, and then we'll get to work. Got that going on right there. There's a baby one. And then down here, got us a little bird's nest. Oh no, now the wasps are down there on it. I did not know we had a bird's nest till that happened. Let's see if we can get rid of them suckers. I think they're dead though, but they might be a little hot. Bird seems to be okay. I'm gonna get the wasps off of it though. As far as I can tell, the wasps have all been unalived enough not to sting the birds, because there's two birds in there that both look like they're doing about the same, and they only had one of them had wasps on it. So I think, aside from that little wasp that's moving down there, they are not stinging them. I've got them all pushed off of them, and I'm going to check back on these birds tomorrow, see how they're doing. I just saw their mama flying around, so I think they're going to be alright, and hopefully they'll just eat the wasps after they die. No more wasps, hopefully. I think a few of them flew off earlier, but this should be most of the babies. Alright, it's held on by one bolt. That was my plan. As you can see, that's working somewhat decently. And in the way of my light right here, I just kind of sacrificed this bolt. I think we'll be alright though. Alright, this is even safer than I anticipated. I do not know how it is still holding on by literally a thread of the bolt. And the washer. This was supposed to be kind of dramatic and fall. Not so much. There we go. There's your drama. I went down a rabbit hole and was looking into wasps stinging baby birds, see what kind of that would look like. They would be freaking out. I've seen it on a YouTube video. They would be freaking out. So I'm optimistic they did not get stung. However, they can get stung and it can kill them. And I've seen dead baby birds in that area in the past few months, not realizing there's a wasp's nest there until tonight, when I usually come out here kind of later after the kids go to bed. But it was still daylight, the wasps were still active tonight, and I found them and I killed them. And I'm hoping that I've saved these baby birds from the wasps. I know this is totally unrelated to the trucks, but having a wasp's nest right above the baby birds, I think as soon as they got big enough to get out and try to fly, they were getting attacked because the wasps were freaking out, them being in their area. So with that, we get back into it with the trucks. You can see I've got the transfer case taken out of the frame now. That's making a bunch of noise. I need to get that bracket off, take the rivets out to swap that bracket onto my crew cab two-wheel drive frame. But now, per my plan of doing the noisy stuff first, now it's getting later, I'm gonna close the doors up and then just kind of bolt this front end back together. Underneath here it should be pretty quiet and satisfying to get this thing done, so y'all check it out. Still need to line up these last holes on the little horns here on this bracket, and then the new holes that I drilled, I've freshly painted. Hopefully that doesn't start rusting, and I need to put some hardware in there. So I'm gonna grab some hardware, slap that in there, and then the next thing I need to do is put these rusty old leaf springs in my freshly painted leaf spring perches there. So the goal with that is to replace the leaf springs with a new lift kit, 4-inch lift, new springs, probably from Skyjacker, but we'll see. I'll look around. So before I slap that rusty nasty thing in there, I'm going to cover it in some fluid film black. I've been using fluid film as my rust preventative for years now because we use it in the Coast Guard on helicopters, and I'm going to put the black on there just so that it kind of just totally seals this in and goes on that black paint in there, and you never will see the rust coming up in there. I feel like it's going to be a nice touch. And then when I put the new leaf spring in, I won't have to deal about any of this rust because it will be separated from my nice black paint by this black rust preventative. So all in all, should just separate the paint from the rust and also just keep it all nice and black in there, because when I sandblast and paint this thing, it's not going to be able to get up in there while it's sitting on its own weight of the leaf spring. So that's my goal, is to have this thing roll out on this set of wheels and tires with the new axles front and rear, and then be able to be painted completely, fresh start, look all nice. But I know there's a couple places I won't be able to reach, and that's what I'm trying to do along the way as I go so I don't miss anything. I painted in between the frame and this bracket before I put it together. All those little mating surfaces I've been painting, just like the same thing I did here in the rear for the the rear of the front spring perch here. This has all been painted before I installed it. Feeling pretty good about that. I got a lot of stuff to sandblast and paint, but you can see it's going to make a huge difference going from this yellow rusty junk. Why is the frame yellow? Can anybody tell me why the frame is the same color as the truck? It's like Department of Transportation yellow. Maybe they drove this thing down painted lines, I don't know, but with it all fresh and black, I think it's going to look real nice one day. That's a precision fit right there. This is very satisfying personally. Putting these brand new zinc coated hardware bolts in this old frame, some fresh black paint. Just looks real nice. That seems torqued to spec. Don't know what the spec is, but it feels like that right there. I've realized that having my other truck up above my head is great for hanging lights off of, so very convenient. And I do have the tall jack stands for when it's up on the lift under it, just for a little bit of security. But it's a 10,000 pound lift and the truck's on there nice and balanced, so I don't mind working underneath it, even though I'm not even working on that truck right now. I'm on this one, but there's F350 above my head right now, so got to keep it exciting in here in the truck house. I just went back and ugga-dugga them a little bit with the impact, just because when I looked it up, it said about 120 to 150 foot-pounds was recommended for this bracket. Now, it was riveted before, so I can't guarantee that's actually the spec for these bolts, because they never were bolts, they were rivets. But my best guess is that they should be good and tight. So I went ahead and ugga-dugga them a little bit instead of just using this tiny ratchet, because when I checked it with the torque wrench at 100, it was still turning. So I went ahead and bumped it up a little bit to 2 ugga-duggas. So those are all in now. I'm gonna try to get this last hole that's missing up here, as well as one on the other side, and then slap this leaf spring in here, hopefully for the final time until they get replaced. Little crooked. Let's see if we can straighten it out with some torque. And this other one's still loose too. So I don't like to tighten from the head side, but impact is definitely not going to fit in there. So let's see how this goes. Paint flying in my eye. Alright, there's that one. This one's still crooked too. Alright, those are nicely installed. So that's every bolt on this side. You can see I got 2, 4, 5, 6, 7 per side holding it in, and those replace the factory rivets that would have been in the same exact spot. Now on this 2-wheel drive frame, as I've said before, those holes were there, except for these two I had to drill with nothing in them. They're just there because it's based off the same 4-wheel drive frame. It's just a ton longer and 2-wheel drive for this crew cab long bed F350. Pretty cool that these will bolt on with the old 4-wheel drive stuff. That's why I'm doing the old 4-wheel drive stuff instead of the Super Duty axles like a lot of people are doing, and what I'm doing with this crew cab. So we got a lot of stuff going on in here, trying to get this thing running and driving and usable as a tow truck, so I can go and get parts and work on this thing for a long time, make it a nice diesel swapped crew cab 1967. Alright, I got the rear end on both sides. Went ahead and did that first, even though the front is a little bit easier to do first because I'm still waiting on paint to dry. I had primered this, but I just threw black paint on it recently, so giving that a moment. So I'm gonna go ahead and spray the front of these leaf springs down with that fluid film black like I was talking about, and then we'll try to line that back up using the jack, maybe lower the frame down to it. We'll see, I might lift the axle up to the frame while it's on jack stands, but I'm gonna try to get those bolts in, let this thing sit on its own weight again as a fully bolted in 4-wheel drive with no steering, but 4-wheel drive nonetheless. Pretty excited about this. Been working on it for quite a bit. Really not too hard, just takes a lot of time. Pretty excited to see how this is coming together. That thing's all greased up right there, so I stick it in there. Hopefully that's not going to let any rust get to the paint, and then we'll get that bolt lined up. Should slide in pretty nicely now. Do the same thing over here. About to throw those 2 final bolts in, and I want to get y'all's opinion. I think I asked in the last video when I was working on the truck, but that's been a couple weeks now. What do y'all recommend for steering on this? So I've got the option of a gearbox kit that you could put on here for like a Super Duty axle swap, where you would weld in a kit from like Battleborn Brakes for a newer Super Duty, not a brand new, but a Super Duty like steering box, I could make that work. However, that does not really work with the leaf springs. So I'm hoping if I did something like that, I could lift it enough to clear it. So I'm hoping the 4-inch lift I want to do to already clear the cross member for the engine from the 2-wheel drive that's in the way of the axle. Hopefully that will be enough. So I'm looking into that, because right now it has like a push-pull on the driver's side, similar to like it's on my square body Chevy too that I just made a video about. But that has a hydraulic ram assist. You can see the lines have been cut to it, but that steering stabilizer looking thing is a hydraulic ram assist that basically, when it is pushing and pulling from the gearbox, would tell it to help out. And those are notorious for leaking apparently, and very expensive to rebuild, like $1,200 to totally reseal the thing, and then it might still leak anyway. So don't want to keep the style that was on the Highboy. I don't want to have just manual steering because I want 37s on this thing. And the 2-wheel drive frame had the gearbox way on the back here behind the engine, so there's no way that setup would work. So I got to figure out the steering on it. I have this Super Duty behind me that I'm completely upgrading with kryptonite front steering, drag link, cross member, tie rods. I don't know what I said cross member, but drag link, track bar, that's the word I'm looking for. And the tie rod assembly is all new from kryptonite, which I've got in a box over here. I showed y'all an unboxing months ago, but let's take a look at that. All that brand new stuff there is going to be sweet. So I have some pretty decent stock 2016 Super Duty parts in here that I could shorten because they're wider axles, but I could shorten that a little bit, make that work, and have crossover steering if I get the right Super Duty gearbox that will bolt onto this thing with a kit. So I'm thinking about doing that, but if you have any other suggestions, let me know, because I need to figure out steering pretty soon on this thing, because what good's a truck that only goes straight unless you're going straight home? I think that's not really going to work out too well for me going and picking up projects and parts and stuff for this other thing I got to hack together and make into a nice truck one day. So with that, I'm going to put these bolts in, but wanted y'all's opinion on steering. What would you do? Would you try to go simple and keep it old school, even if it's expensive and risky, or would you get a little custom, go with the newer stuff blended with the old and try to make something happen there to where it's got a nice new gearbox with crossover steering, which means it goes from the driver's side over to the passenger side and has a better angle, and it's not so affected by the bumps. Y'all tell me what you think. Oh man, I can't do the back ones first. It's gonna hit right there. Dang it. I already got the back ones in. I knew that was gonna happen, but I was optimistic anyway. I wonder how much force it would take to get that in there. Well, there's the full weight of it, and it's not gonna go. It almost seems like this side would. The back part's on a hinge shackle though, so I wonder if I can scoot the axle back. I'm ready to catch it with the jack, but I wonder if I can give it a little bit of persuasion. There we go. Now I need to lower it while I do that without breaking my leg. How am I going to do that? Okay, that side's in. Alright, that actually worked. Wow, I did not have that much confidence in that, but okay. So now it's shifted a little bit back. I need to take the weight off of it and kind of adjust it to just the right spot. Get that bolt in there. I can see it's coming to get close to where I want to be anyway. All right, now I've gone too far. Stay away from being underneath it. All right. So I'm gonna try to align this here like this. Oh, that one's already perfect. I didn't even, what? That's crazy. Look at that. Wow, that's nice. Everything's a hammer. If you haven't learned that yet, everything's a hammer. Okay, nice. Okay, that went pretty good. Pretty decent. screw that in there. I'm just putting these on finger tight because I'm only going to roll this out into the yard to sandblast it, to paint it and everything, and then I'm going to replace these bolts with nice zinc plated, shiny gold looking ones afterwards. Now let me see if I can get this other one in. It's way easier to get the rear in because it moves. The front, it only has one place it can go. And that's why I didn't really want to do the rear first, but I wanted my paint to dry. Now I got this happening. What's going on here? Come on. Oh, that's kind of going. Dang it. What in the heck? Maybe if I take some more weight off of it. I need to put more weight on it and it'll stretch the leaf spring out and maybe move it forward. Now the seat's falling on me again. Stop. Hammer. See, didn't I make that look easy? Also, I have this random piece of black tape here to remind me to go back and weld this where the weld had to come out to get the rivet out the rest of the way. What do y'all think? Am I gonna forget to do that or what? Black on black right there. Hopefully I keep seeing that and it reminds me to do it. All right, boys, we got this thing sitting on its own weight for the first time with all 6 bolts in the frame here. 2 actual shackle bolts holding it into that, and then we've got, what is it, like 7 on each side bolts over here. So it's all bolted down, torqued to 2 ugga-duggas, and then actually got the bolts in front and rear. So this thing's sitting here, no jacks or jack stands. You can see I can roll the thing, and pretty excited about that. The old drive shaft sitting there hanging from a zip tie, rotating slowly with the 456 gears in the rear of this thing that we're swapping to 410s. I'm curious how it's going to go with 37s on a old, FE motor. It's a 352, not a 351, but I'm putting the old 352 in here from 1967 that is still running from my black truck right here, sitting outside. This black truck's going to be on this frame, as I've talked about for years now. But I got a motor sitting around from it that I just had running and driving recently, in the past couple months. So I'm slapping that thing in here. So with the 352, the old 4-speed manual, it's got like a granny low. First gear is like super low stump puller. And then 410 gears front and rear on 37s. I'm hoping that will give me a decent like towing highway ratio and also be able to do a little bit of off-roading and everything. It's not like 456s like what's in the rear of this thing currently, which I don't have a front axle to go with those, so that's why I'm doing the 410s. And with the 456s, it would be a little bit better for off-road, a little bit, lower, easier to start moving, easier to start towing, but I don't know what it would be like at highway speeds. This thing had a 300 straight 6 in it, and that thing would scream trying to go anywhere because the gears were so low in it. So with that, 410s is the ratio. Let me know what y'all think of that. I'm excited to get this thing on the road. I have a long way to go. I don't even have a front end dash or anything. All that stuff is on this truck here that I'm going to be stealing from it. So I'm going to be making it look just like this white truck that you can't see too well up here on the left. That's why I bought this thing. Love how it looks. Want my 4-door long bed to look just like this 2-door long bed white one. So going to get this thing wrapped up as soon as possible. I don't know if I'm doing the steering or the sandblasting and painting next. And at some point I got to start welding the cabs together. So a lot to do. I'm going to keep chipping away at it after working on weekends. Today is a Tuesday night. I got to work at 7:30 in the morning and it's about 11 o'clock. So always trying to get a little progress done and still make time for the family. I only come out here when they're asleep or if I have, a bunch of free time on the weekends. So let's get this thing together. I'm gonna hopefully keep chipping away at this thing, but if I don't make any more excitement on this video, I'm gonna go ahead and cut it here. So thank y'all so much for watching. I appreciate all of y'all. Having the Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, YouTube has all been great because I talked to like different people on all the pages. So y'all let me know where you found me from, if you started off on YouTube or if you've seen the Instagram that I've had going for over 10 years now. So thank y'all so much. Be sure to come back. I'll see you next time.